So yeah, Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever is currently a match not made in heaven. Um, it was doing okay for a while. It really was. It really was doing well for a while. And look, all the Indiana Fever had to do, was get a little bit more structure. A little bit more structure from 2024. They had a system. They had an offense that was the best offense in the league.
The locker room door slammed, and the silence in the Indiana facility became deafening. Stephanie White didn't just walk in, she arrived with a wrecking ball aimed directly at the franchise's biggest star. For weeks, the tension between the legendary coach and Caitlin Clark has been a ticking time bomb, but nobody expected the explosion to happen this fast. The rumors of a blockbuster trade aren't just whispers anymore, they are a reality that has the entire WNBA reeling. Stephanie White has reportedly seen enough, and the destination being discussed for Clark is a move that would rewrite the history of the league forever.
It is. Like Caitlin's not blameless here. I think Stephanie White's more to blame. Why is Stephanie White more to blame than Caitlin Clark? Because Stephanie White chose to come into an organization with Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark didn't choose to be drafted by the Fever. So like, if Caitlin Clark, or if Stephanie White is choosing to come with Caitlin Clark, you don't go and 180 your coaching style or 180 the team and decide that
it was supposed to be a match made in heaven, a championship caliber duo that would dominate the league for a decade. But instead of a dynasty, we are witnessing a total collapse of the Fever's internal structure. Stephanie White stepped into an organization that already had the best offense in the league, led by a generational talent in Caitlin Clark. Instead of building around that brilliance, White decided to tear it all down, to implement her own rigid system. She wants structure and predictability, while Caitlin thrives on the exact opposite. This fundamental clash has created a rift so deep that even the front office can't ignore it any longer.
Around it where people are talking about, oh, is Caitlin Clark a cancer and stuff. It's like we all know Caitlin Clark has improved as a player by a lot. Caitlin Clark is not a cancer. As people, Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White don't hate each other. But I'm being real. Caitlin Clark, she's never lost in her life when there's been an expectation to win. In her life. Like, yeah, when there's no real expectation. Like, she then goes, like, she went and overperformed Iowa.
Sources close to the team say the frustration has reached a boiling point during recent practices. Stephanie White is demanding a 180 degrees turn in how the team plays, essentially telling the greatest playmaker of a generation to stop being herself. It's a classic case of a coach trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and the friction is visible every time they take the court. White knew exactly who Caitlin Clark was when she took the job, yet she is acting like the roster is the problem. Now the unthinkable is happening. The Fever are actually listening to trade offers for the face of women's basketball.
And it's going to be like, the annoying part is like, it is addition by subtraction with Indiana. If Indiana just get rid of Caitlin Clark and they allow Stephanie White to fully play her puke ball, and the Indiana Fever can get back this us against the world attitude that they had last year. But I think it's going to be hard for them to get that attitude because no one's going to hate the Indiana Fever. They're not going to be the most hated team. Like, Angel Reese fans don't hate Chicago. They just laugh at them. Like, you're just going to find the Chicago side hilarious. And there's one very obvious.
That Caitlin Clark is somehow a cancer in the locker room is being completely dismantled by those who actually know the game. She didn't choose to be drafted by Indiana, and she certainly didn't choose a coach who wants to stifle her natural instincts. While Clark remains professional, the addition by subtraction argument is starting to gain momentum within the Fever organization. If Stephanie White wants to play a gritty, defensive-first style of basketball, she can't do it with a high-octane offensive engine like Clark. One of them has to go, and right now, the momentum is swinging toward a massive trade.
Like, Angel Reese fans don't hate Chicago, they just laugh at them. Like, you're just going to find the Chicago side hilarious. And there's one very obvious team that the Indiana Fever are going to can trade Caitlin Clark to. It's the Golden State Valkyries. I'm watching them get cooked by the Aces. Get cooked. Juste Jacite is one of the best young players in the world. They just haven't figured out a way of getting anything into her. Like, they haven't figured out a way to get her to play. And this Indiana Fever, or this Valkyries team has no offense. Like, they do not play offense. Whatever about their defense, they do not play offense. And not only that, they have a really good...
Enter the Golden State Valkyries, the expansion powerhouse that is ready to burn the house down to get their hands on a superstar. They have the assets, the desperation, and a system that actually needs exactly what Caitlin Clark provides. While Indiana is trying to slow things down, the Valkyries are starving for an offensive engine that can actually put points on the board. They have built a roster of elite defenders and dogs who can cover up for any defensive weaknesses. It is the perfect landing spot, and Stephanie White's reaction to the proposed package has been described as a mixture of shock and relief.
That would help the Fever. So, the Golden State Valkyries proposed trade. Give up their 2027 first round pick, their 2028 first round pick, and their 2029 first round pick. They give up the 2028 second round pick they got in the Flaugier trade, and they give up their third round pick in 2027. Like, so you get 3 firsts, a second, and you get 3 firsts, a second, and a third. So 5 draft picks and a player that helps.
The trade package being discussed is nothing short of a king's ransom, the kind of deal we haven't seen in the history of the WNBA. We are talking about 3 future first-round picks spanning from 2027 to 2029, plus multiple second- and third-round assets. But it is not just about the picks. It is about the immediate impact players the Fever would receive in return. The name at the center of the deal is Zandalicini, a versatile 6 feet 2 inches shooter who fits Stephanie White's defensive vision perfectly. She brings the toughness and the against-the-world attitude that the Fever coaching staff is desperate to reclaim.
Your Tip Hayes can come in, Kyla Charles can come in, but Amihere might be gone. Say if Zandalicini's gone, Amihere's gone. If you end up trading the two young players, you get rid of, you just put in Caitlin for Chechi, and you kind of hope for the best. But the Golden State Valkyries need an offensive engine, because in fairness, like, they shot 5 of 33s today. Like, Janelle Salon and Chechi shoot the most contested threes in the league. You're going to get open threes for Chechi, Janelle. You're going to open threes for all these players, and they let them fly. And Amihere just hit 2 3-pointers? What? But they're going to let them fly.
Stephanie White's obsession with a predictable offense might sound crazy to fans, but she believes that being unstoppable is better than being creative. She wants a team where every player knows their exact role, and nobody colors outside the lines. In her mind, replacing Caitlin Clark with a player like Zandile Lechalonian or Cha-Cha allows the Fever to return to the identity they had before the hype train took over. They want to be the team that grinds you down and wins ugly. To achieve that, they are willing to let go of the most popular player in the world, to get their defensive identity back on track.
Recruiting. This team hides all of Caitlin Clark's weaknesses and plays to her strengths. And yeah, there's a little bit of small ball in there. This team doesn't switch. This team is well coached, and this is a team that needs an offensive engine like Caitlin Clark, because defensively they can compete with anybody on any given night. They just can't score. And then the Indiana Fever realistically need to just become the 2025 Fever again, because you can't beat the 2025 Fever with Caitlin Clark. That's what they're trying to do. Chechi's a obvious option, and you imagine being able to just go back to what you were last year, addition by subtraction, because I mean this short.
The Valkyries are currently struggling to find any rhythm on the offensive end of the floor. They are a defensive juggernaut that can stop anyone, but they couldn't throw a rock in the ocean most nights. They recently shot a staggering 5 for 30 from beyond the arc, a statistic that highlights their desperate need for a floor general. Caitlin Clark wouldn't just improve their shooting, she would create wide-open looks for players like Janelle Salon and Cha-Cha. The Valkyries have a roster full of players who are ready to let it fly, they just need someone who can actually draw the double teams and find them. Imagine a lineup where Caitlin Clark is surrounded by elite defenders like Gabby Williams and Veronica Burton. This is the scenario that has the Valkyries front office salivating, and Stephanie White losing her mind over the potential shift in power. In Golden State, Clark wouldn't have to worry about being a defensive stopper because she would have dogs behind her to clean up any mistakes. The Valkyries switch everything, they play fast, and they are well coached in a way that plays to a superstar's strengths rather than trying to suppress them. It is a match made in basketball heaven. For the Indiana Fever, this trade represents a total reset to the version of the team they actually want to be. They want to get back to that feverish defensive intensity, where they were the most hated team in the league for their physicality, not their highlight reels. By bringing in a veteran like Zandalicini, they get a significant upgrade on the wing who can actually stretch the floor without demanding the ball for 20 seconds of the shot clock. It allows Kelsey Mitchell to take over the primary scoring role, a move that Stephanie White reportedly believes will lead to more consistent winning. The salary cap implications of this move are equally massive. The Valkyries are in a position where they do not care about draft picks. They want to win right now and establish a fan base in the Bay Area. They are willing to take on garbage contracts or move young assets like Amy Hearn or Kylie Shook just to make the numbers work, as long as the trade is within the required salary margin. The league office is expected to approve it. This isn't just a fantasy trade, it's a calculated move by a new franchise that knows Caitlin Clark is the only way to sell out an arena every single night. When Stephanie White was asked about the rumors, her response was telling. She didn't issue a flat-out denial. Instead, she spoke about the importance of roster cohesion and playing the right way. That is coach speak for, I can't work with the players I have. The tension in the locker room has reportedly spread to other players who feel caught in the middle of this power struggle. Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell are caught between a coach they respect and a teammate who is the most famous athlete in the country. The chemistry is poisoned, and a trade might be the only antidote. One of the most shocking aspects of this potential deal is how quickly the Fever are willing to move on from their lottery prize. Usually a team would fire the coach before trading generational talent, but Indiana seems to be doubling down on Stephanie White's vision. They believe that the media circus surrounding Clark is a distraction that prevents them from building a real culture. They want to be the team that nobody wants to play against, not the team that everyone wants to watch on TV. It is a gamble that could either make them a powerhouse or go down as the worst mistake in sports history. The Valkyries roster is already being prepared for Clark's arrival. They have a backup point guard in Caitlin Chen who could learn under Clark, and veterans like Tip Hayes who can provide the leadership that the young star has been missing in Indiana. The coaching staff in Golden State is known for being flexible and creative, the polar opposite of the rigid structure Stephanie White is trying to force in Indiana. They are ready to give Clark the keys to the city and let her cook, knowing that their defense is strong enough to handle the rest. It is a terrifying prospect for the rest of the league. Inside the Fever facility, the atmosphere has been described as cold. The coaching staff is reportedly frustrated that Clark hasn't fully bought into the new defensive schemes, while Clark is frustrated by the lack of pace in the offense. Stephanie White's system requires constant movement and specific spacing that takes away the pick-and-roll freedom Clark enjoyed at Iowa. When you take away a player's greatest weapon, you're going to get pushback. White's restructuring is effectively an eviction notice for Clark's style of play, and the trade to Golden State is the final signature on that document. The draft picks involved in the trade are the real secret sauce for the Fever's future. By acquiring 3 first-rounders from the Valkyries via the Seattle Storm, Indiana would essentially own the draft for the next 3 years. They could build a roster of elite young role players who fit Stephanie White's mold perfectly. It is the ultimate addition by subtraction move. They lose the superstar, but they gain a decade of potential depth. For a coach who prizes the system over the individual, this is a dream scenario that allows her to build a team in her own image from the ground up. critics are already calling this potential move a disaster for the WNBA's growth, but those inside the room say it is about survival. You cannot have a head coach and a franchise player who are fundamentally at odds about how to play the game. Stephanie White has a championship pedigree and a very specific way of doing things. She isn't going to change for a rookie, no matter how many jerseys that rookie sells. The fact that the Valkyries are willing to give up 5 total draft picks and a starter like Xanda Licini shows just how much they value the chance to build around the Clark effect. What is even more interesting is how the Valkyries plan to use Clark. They don't just want her as a traditional point guard. They see her as an offensive engine that can play off ball next to a downhill driver like Veronica Burton. This combo guard look would make them impossible to scout. Burton gets to the rim and creates chaos, while Clark waits on the perimeter to punish any help defense. It is a sophisticated offensive approach that honors Clark's gravity without putting the entire burden of the offense on her shoulders. It is exactly what she needs to take the next step in her career. The reaction from the Indiana fan base has been a mix of fury and confusion. They waited years for a player like Caitlin Clark, and now they are watching their head coach push her out the door before the first season is even over. But Stephanie White is focused on the long game. She knows that winning games is the only thing that will keep her job in the long run. If she can win without Clark by using the assets from the Valkyries, she will be hailed as a genius. If she fails, she will be remembered as the coach who traded away the greatest prospect in the history of the sport. There is also the against the world factor to consider. Last year, the Fever played with a chip on their shoulder that seems to have vanished under the weight of the Caitlin Clark media circus. Stephanie White wants that edge back. She wants a team of players who feel overlooked and disrespected, players who will dive for loose balls and play physical defense for 40 minutes. By trading Clark, she removes the spotlight and allows the team to return to the shadows where they feel most comfortable. It is a psychological reset that White believes is necessary for the franchise to actually grow. As the trade deadline approaches, the phone calls between the Fever and the Valkyries are becoming more frequent. The league office is already preparing for the fallout of what would be the biggest trade in women's sports history. Stephanie White is reportedly standing firm on her demands, refusing to settle for anything less than a massive haul of picks and versatile defenders. She isn't just looking to move on, she's looking to win the trade so convincingly that nobody can question her authority again. The power struggle in Indiana is reaching its end game, and Golden State is waiting with open arms. The move would also reunite Clark with a system that mirrors what she had at Iowa, fast, explosive, and centered around her vision. In Golden State, she wouldn't be told to structure her game, she would be told to break the game. The Valkyries are ready to let her fly, and the defensive foundation they have built will act as her safety net while Stephanie White is losing her mind over the prospect of losing her star. She is also quietly realizing that this might be the only way she can truly coach the team her way. The divorce is imminent, and the destination is finally clear. Ultimately, this saga proves that talent alone isn't enough to build a champion. You need a shared vision between the bench and the court. If Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark can't find common ground, then a parting of ways is the only logical conclusion for both parties. The Golden State Valkyries are offering a lifeline that could save Clark's career from being stifled by a system that doesn't fit her. Whether this trade actually goes through or not, the message is clear. The Indiana Fever are no longer a match made in heaven. The basketball world is about to change, and nobody is ready for the fallout.